Stephen came here to learn how to do podcasts properly, and we're just like, what? We don't know.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Series 19 of the Plant-Based Podcast is sponsored by Queen and Fine Floral Design. Enjoy gorgeous flowers to lift your mood or gift to a loved one with stunning seasonal bouquets, monthly subscriptions, eloquent wedding flowers, and home floral decorations. Queen and Fine bring nature-led designs to your home because flowers really do make people happy. Now serving in Charlotte, North Carolina, including surrounding areas, and in the UK from 2026. Check us out at queenandfine.com and follow us on Instagram at queenandfine.
Hey guys, today we're joined by Stephen from Growing Crazy, which is a UK nursery that specialises in the wonderful world of pelargoniums. We'll be talking about their history, the different types, how to grow them at home, the edible and fragrant uses of pelargoniums, and even a few rare species you might not even have heard of. So we're going to dive in and welcome Stephen to the podcast.
Hello.
Thank you, Stephen.
How are you
Welcome to the
doing?
podcast.
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
It's his first time, Ellen. He's a podcast virgin.
We've got a podcast version. I think
we're very gentle.
We'll be very gentle with you, Stephen. I think we should start with the easiest question of all. Can you just tell us a little bit about your nursery, about Growing Crazy, and how you came to specialize in pelargoniums?
Oh, wow. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll try and
Go
keep
for
it
it.
fairly
We'll
short.
let you do all the talking, Stephen.
It started
We
many,
give you
many
1
moons
hour
ago.
maximum.
Right, okay. It started many, many moons ago when I was about 13 years of age, and I got a job working at the National Pelargonium Collection, working for Hazel Key, who was one of the leading pelargonium experts at the time. And I started off just doing the sort of lifting and carrying to sort of help her out and things. And then I sort of got a bit well, not too inquisitive, but I just asked lots of questions. Why are you doing that? What's that? Why does that one do that? Why is that called that and not that? You know, those types of things. And then from there, I just got hooked on pelargoniums really. And throughout my teens, worked at the nursery. And then when it got to sort of deciding what do I want to do with the rest of my life, I probably listened to people that sort of said, go down the corporate business IT route, that's where the money is, and that's where I sort of went. But pelargoniums were always with me, and I grew those in the background. So I've sort of been collecting them for over 30 years now. But it was great. I got involved with doing like Chelsea Flower Show and doing displays down there. So I had a really good sort of dive into all things pelargoniums, and then fast forward to probably just before the pandemic. The family that sort of owned the collection sort of let me know that they were looking at closing the nursery and they were going to be distributing the collections out to different RHS gardens. So I was like, oh, I've got to save that one. I've got to look after that one. And suddenly my collection started growing a little bit too rapidly for my partner's delight. So it was then sort of a conversation. I think I can remember social distancing from Ursula, Hazel's daughter. And she was like, well, what's going on with you? I would have thought you'd have had your own nursery by now. And I said, well, the only thing I'm ever good at growing is pelargoniums, and I wasn't going to go into competition with you. So she sort of said, daft bugger, get on with it kind of thing. So I did. So I started selling online through the pandemic. And then last year we got invited to do Blenheim Palace Flower Show, our first ever show, and ended up getting a gold medal and best in show. So it was like, okay, we've got something here. And there was a few other things that were sort of going on in the background, sort of life events and stuff like that. And we sort of grew it from there, and I made the decision at Christmas to give up my job. Well, just in case my partner's hearing, decided to take a year out to see where it would go.
You'll be rumbled soon.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Secrets out. So yeah, and then we got invited to do BBC Gardeners World and a couple of other shows and events. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's kind of snowballed from there, really.
Wow.
Wow, that is really cool. And I think this is such a great testament to the fact that you're just following your dream. You're following what you want to do rather than what you feel you should do, which I think
Absolutely.
is a theme we've had on the podcast so often, and it's not always about money,
Mm.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not
Yeah.
about the money.
Oh, but I think when you love something,
Everyone
the
says
money
that.
comes. So
Everyone says
yeah.
that, Stephen, on the podcast when they're in horticulture.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, right, I've shuffled the first couple questions because I feel like there's one question we need to jump straight in with when we start talking about pelargoniums, and that is, what is a pelargonium? Because we also call them geraniums in the UK. Specialists can be a bit snobby about, calling them by the correct names. First of all, are you a snob about the name? And can you explain what is a geranium? What is a pelargonium? Where do they cross over? Why the confusion? So just make that clear for us as a start, please.
The biggest question is, am I a snob with with the name? I'm neither a snob nor a non-snob. I'm somewhere in between. Um, no, I think it's good to
Okay.
sort of uh, get it across that they are pelargoniums, but I won't sort of tell you off if you do
Hmm.
call them geraniums. That's what we all know and love them as. Um, but yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of, typically people know pelargoniums as geraniums, the sort of classic red zonal type, but that's actually a zonal pelargonium. So that's sort of where sort of some of the misconception comes in as to what's a pelargonium or geranium. A geranium is obviously the hardy
Hmm.
geranium that's native to Northern Europe. I'm sort of waiting to be
Hmm.
corrected, Michael. Native to sort of Northern Europe, whereas obviously pelargoniums are South African origin plants,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they need protecting
absolutely.
from frost.
So that is our big difference there. Awesome.
Yeah,
Because I always feel like when people are busy correcting people on the names, it's like, well, I sort of don't mind as long as they're growing it. I don't know.
exactly, exactly. And it's one of the
Yeah.
biggest questions that we, most frequently asked questions that we get asked is, what's the difference between a pelargonium and geranium? And it's always nice to sort of tilt them through that and explain that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. I think most people will still call them geraniums, though.
Absolutely. Try my
Yeah.
grandmother, bless
Even
her,
when there's a
would never
name
be deterred.
change
No,
of,
she'll never say anything other.
yeah. Like what
Well,
was it? Ellen, the Dyson changed to Lampno and like no,
yeah.
no one's ever calling it that.
No,
Anyway,
I can
sorry.
remember when obviously they renamed it to Lamprecapnos, and then I'd posted something
Mm.
because I had the Alba one, and it is just absolutely
Ah,
beautiful,
yeah.
grown so big. And
Yeah.
I posted it on my Facebook page, and I got more comments than I would do usually on any post, just saying, "Since when did we change the name? I'm never going to call it that name. Who decided to change it to
Uh,
that?"
uh,
It will always be Dicentra or Bleeding Heart. Pelargoniums, though, or geraniums, have
Yeah.
such a rich history, especially in Britain. We do love them, don't we? And every year you see pots and containers and all kinds of places full of them in their various colors. Like, what do you think makes them such a favorite here? Why do people love them so much, Stephen?
Probably because they've been around for so long. I think
Yeah.
and love for so long. Yeah, in terms of rich history wise, when they were first brought over here by plant collectors, in the sort of 1700s, a lot of the big country estates grew them and sort of looked at, their prized pelargonium, or geranium as they thought then, their prized sort of varieties that they were
mhm.
growing, and then they were sort of looking at hybridizing them. So they were really quite exclusive and something, a bit different, in the sort of gardening horticultural world. And as they sort of progress through this sort of ages, obviously, the Victorians loved them. They loved to put them in their, parks and open spaces. But they also, I love this, they also used to give red geraniums, pelargoniums to the
Hmm.
poor to encourage them to take a bit more pride in their house and in their neighborhood and to have them on the
Oh.
windowsill. Yeah, it's something I hadn't realized, until recently. And it was one way that they were trying
Oh.
to sort of encourage sort of civic pride. So then that sort of encouraged, that sort of competitiveness for being better gardener than the next person.
Ah.
But I think it's very much around nostalgia. We get a lot of people coming to us going, "Oh, I love geraniums. My parents used to grow them, and they remind me of this, or the scent of that reminds me of that." Or my grandparents used to grow this one, and it got this shape, and it smelled like this. Which variety is it? Which you often get. But I think it's a lot to do with sort of nostalgia about, what they sort of grew up with and what they're
Ah.
familiar with. But the other thing is they're adaptable to pretty much any growing space or conditions that somebody might have, from a big garden through to just a windowsill or even just in a pot on a desk.
Yeah,
Mm.
they're so pretty.
Yeah, probably one of the most drought tolerant bedding plants. And despite being one of the most elegant, that's almost like it's a double win, isn't it? It's
A-
yeah, incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you've obviously got a lot of older of course. So you've obviously got a lot of old varieties. But like in terms of like newer trends, like are you hooked into the new breeding that's coming through, or kind of like, conservation of rare species, interest in houseplants? Like I know some of the fancy types have been put back into production in recent years. So kind of what trends do you see as someone who's been in love with pelargoniums for a long time?
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because of the diverse nature of all the different groups that there are of pelargoniums, it it's funny how sort of different trends come in and out, and pelargoniums tend to always be there, but it might be that one group is more popular at a time than another. There's definitely a growing trend as people realize that they can keep them as house plants. So sort of looking at
Hmm.
they get asked which varieties would be good for that. But we're also seeing a sort of move towards more of the coloured leaf varieties and some of the stellar varieties as well. But I think in terms of like the new varieties, we like to preserve and sort of say resurrect. What's a nicer word than resurrect? Reintroduce, reintroduce
Yeah,
sort of
that's
old
nice.
favorites. Yeah, because I overheard somebody say, well, quite recently, it's like, oh, there's another pelargonium out, but it's another knicker pink color. And there's only so many of the same color and that you can come up with. So in terms
Yeah.
of the big trend at the moment, it's looking at those or going back to those species and looking at the species hybrids that are being produced that are something
Hmm.
completely different. And I'll bore you with a bit of a geeky fact. There's around 280 species of pelargoniums that are
Hmm.
mostly native to South Africa, but actually, of all those species, only 20 to 30 of those are the basis for the modern hybrids that we see in the garden centres and see about. So imagine all the diversity and variety that's still yet to be explored. So yeah, there's an element of looking for sort of new but different things as well as sort of preserving some of the older heritage varieties as well.
That's so interesting.
I can get geekier.
You can get
You're
geekier
in the
if
right
you
place.
like. You are
Yeah.
so welcome to be geeky on this podcast. What I'm interested in though is, do you have like a personal favorite variety and why? And
Oh.
I know this is so hard. I hate like it's one of the hardest questions to ask someone that, loves plants, but especially when you grow one particular plant. But do you have a favorite and why?
Oh, ugh. Yeah, I mean, again, not sort of shouting too loudly because I think my
Mhm.
partner still thinks I've got about 150 varieties in my collection, but I think it's over 600 now. Um, but yeah, it is sort of really difficult. I mean, for a similar sort of way that nostalgia and things like that. There's one called a regal pelargonium called Sunset Snow, and it's a really beautiful sort of pale white mauve flower, but it's got deep purple centers. And then when as a kid at school you used to do the painting where you flick the paint off the end of a toothbrush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that sort of splatters all over the flower, and it's absolutely
Mm.
amazing. And it was one
Cool.
of the ones that was fairly early, like spotted fairly early on in the national collection. So it's kind of always been there. But I nearly lost it last year. I nearly lost it. I was down to one last plant. So yeah, it's quite easy to lose them, and I don't think anywhere has got them available in the UK or anywhere else has got them available in the UK. So that was a squeaky moment. But
Oh
I think
gosh. Yeah, I would love to see a photograph of that.
okay,
Definitely.
I'll sort it out. It is a really
Yeah.
nice one. But I think probably of the sort of again the newer ones or the ones that we're reintroducing, there's one that oh, this is where I might be geeky, but I'm useless at my Latin. I'm like Hermione Granger when it comes to the Latin. I try to be too posh. Stenopetalum. I'll go stenopilatum,
Okay.
stenopetalum. And it's a really nice species, and it has these tall sort of flower stems like a stellar pelargonium, and then it produces these bright pink,
Mm.
very sort of thin petals, and it just looks like sort of almost starburst or fireworks of these flowers. But the leaves are like waxy with a bit of a zone on them, but they're like more like an ivy leaf
Okay.
sort of leaf. So
Uh-huh.
it's really something a little bit special, which we're reintroducing hopefully next year. So that's kind of my current favorite,
That's
I would
really
say.
cool. I
Sounds
love this.
absolutely beautiful.
Uh, I love this species one, Ardens. You know, Ardens with this
Yes.
lovely, rich ruby red with a maroon center, and that is so
Yeah,
sexy.
it's
But there's
it's a
also what is
stunning
that?
one.
What is that little? What is that little black flowered one? Quinculabatum. Is that right? It's a little tiny, almost black flower. Sidoides.
I was
Sidoides
gonna
is a
say
good one
Sido
with that deep
yes,
purple flower.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sidoides,
Oh
which
yeah.
we've got the
Oh
magenta form, and this year with the sun being the way
yeah.
it is, it's been really bright and magenta. It's been quite interesting
Oh,
to
that is
watch.
cool.
Yeah, and that's a
Look
popular
at
species.
Quinculabatum because that Quinculabatum is almost a black one. That's pretty cool.
Yes, yeah,
And I know I got excited about it on your stand. I think at Gardeners World Live, but Mr. Wren. I've always loved Mr. Wren, that blue and white, red and white one.
yeah,
Yeah.
with the sort of the white edging to the red
Cool.
flower. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
There's actually also
yeah.
a sport of that that's been released from somebody in Norway found a sport of
Yeah.
that, and it's actually got a variegated leaf, and it's called
Oh
Hagmas
my gosh.
trollcriem. Again, it's one of those that's not very, widely available, but
Cute.
it is again something different.
Where do these
Mhm.
names
That's
come from?
cool.
That's what I want to
Because
know.
It depends who's found them at the time that sort of come up with them. We're getting some lovely
yeah,
names coming from sort of Sweden and Scandinavian countries at the moment.
That's fun.
people always think that naming a plant after someone will work, but it's like it not doesn't make the great sales name, and sometimes a word doesn't translate into different languages.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And we often sort of
But
see names
yeah.
sort of names sort of change for marketing purposes. There's a plant called
Mm,
sorry, Michael. There's a Madame Salaron, which is a nice variegated
okay.
leaf, and it doesn't
Oh
flower,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't have a flower. But then you
yeah.
see a lot of the commercial nurseries marketing this plant called Madame Salaron, when actually that's a sport
Hmm.
from Madame Salaron, and it was called Little Trot.
Ah,
But you can
Ah.
imagine Little Trot
okay.
doesn't sound as nice to sell as Madame Salaron. So
Yeah,
yeah,
No.
that's cool.
Great.
So let's I just talk about pelargoniums as houseplants because there's actually like if I remember from my childhood, my grandma was growing them outdoors, but also a few kind of dare I say gnarly ones indoors on the windowsill, and they kind of get this almost like half beautiful tree form to them. And of course, some of the like semi-climbing ones, like the antics, you can almost train them like jasmine in a conservatory as a climber, can't you? So how do you feel about indoor pelargoniums? And I guess in that, we need to cover the regals and the angels as well, which are the perfect windowsill pelargoniums, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, most Pelargoniums will, don't mind being indoors, and obviously over the winter they're quite happily in a sort of bright windowsill. But yeah, I mean, depending on what sort of group you're sort of looking at, there's always sort of varieties within that which will probably do better on a windowsill as well. We've got
Hmm.
it's quite a nice miniature at the moment that's called Friesdorf, and it's a bright red, but it's got really dark, almost sort of dark grey black leaves to it, which really sort of stand out, and it flowers well into the winter as well. So that's quite a nice one.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the Regals don't mind being on a windowsill, and if you like a bright sort of blousy flower, that that will really sort of stand out. But the one group that does sort of seem popular as a house plant is the sentids, because obviously during the winter months when there isn't much
Mm.
flower around, you still have the scent sort of. I'm not allowed to say wafting. I get told off for saying wafting. So the scent
Really?
drifting.
Oh.
You
Drifting.
get told off if you say geranium.
Oh yeah, there is that, yeah.
Wafting's all
No,
right.
my mom doesn't like
Oh.
it when I say waft. It doesn't sound pleasant.
Oh, is that Diane?
It
You
is,
send
yes,
Diane to
yeah.
me. I'll sort her out. Yeah.
But yeah, no, they'll quite happily grow as house plants. Just make sure that they get plenty of light, and plenty of air around them
Mhm.
as well. Um, you see, you started saying about these tree-like pelargoniums. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. How do you feel
I
about those?
I like to pinch them out.
Snob.
They, I think I remember them as like grandparents growing them, and that's dare I upset people and say it's kind of a bit of neglect.
Yeah.
If you pinch them out, they'll sort of obviously bush
Ah,
out nicely and put on a much better
yeah.
display. But it's that sort of traditional
But
look, isn't it?
yeah, there's something really glorious about a leggy pelargonium. Is there not? Are you with me, Ellen?
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
You know, when you see all them and they kind of look like pipe cleaners, it's pretty cool.
I don't
And
know. I like a nice kind of a nice looking plant, compact, with the lovely tall
Yeah.
stems and flowers. So I'm not sure about leggy.
yeah, I think but that's the beauty of pelargoniums. You can sort of adapt them and grow them to your own taste, really. There's a pelargonium for everyone, however you want to
Hmm.
grow it.
Absolutely, there is. And also, I've got some that have incredible fragrance, the scented leaf varieties. So, can you tell us a few of those? Talk about some of those and what's their appeal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a lot of people, the scented pelargoniums are a sort of a gateway plant into the world of pelargonium
Yeah.
addiction.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, we've got yeah, the there's just such a diverse range of different scents that you can get them from. We've got sort of like lemons, so we've got lemon kiss, bitter lemon, citronella, and you'd kind of think, well, lemon's lemon, but the lemon kiss is almost like a sherbet kind of
Mm.
lemon. The bitter lemon smells like the
Hmm.
one, that you pour into a drink. It's absolutely fantastic. Then you've got sort of lime-ish ones with a plant called limonium. We've got orange, we've got Prince of Orange and Orange Fizz. There's apple with Big Apple and Apple Betty, saying about names. And then we've got lavender.
Hmm.
There's a lovely one called Lavender Lindy. And then we've got ones that like a bit spicy. Ardwick cinnamon, that's got a really strong cinnamon scent to it. It's really nice. But we've also got like Royal Oak and Fair Ellen as well. And then we've got the minty ones, or we've got Tomentosum, Islington Peppermint,
Oh,
Lady
I
Plymouth
love
is
that
kind of
one. Oh,
which Islington
yeah.
Peppermint. It's a beautiful one, and the flower on that is absolutely beautiful, but it's a real
Oh,
challenge to grow.
oh, I like the furry
Isn't it?
leaves. They're like felt. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yes.
How nice. I
Oh.
want to know, does the citronella pelargonium actually deter mosquitoes?
Oh, this is where I have to, I would love to say yes, because I think everybody kind of goes, oh, well, I'll buy one, which would be great. But, there's talk that they might do, and obviously lemon scent might deter some flies and things, but there's a bit of a story on this one. I
Is
probably won't,
there?
I won't tell
Yeah.
the when I was in Spain this year, actually, it was in April, we saw in the garden centres that they got
Yeah.
all of these plants that were branded as um, I'll not say the brand, but basically they chase mosquitoes away.
Okay.
And
Right.
so I said,
Mosquito
oh,
way. Yeah.
Yes. So we bought one and we had it on our balcony because I was
Another
like,
one. Yes.
I'm sure that's Citridorum. Anyway, so we had it on the balcony and Harry turned around and
Mm.
said to me, he said, have you seen that plant? And I went, yeah. And he went, no, look closely. And there was a mosquito sat happily on the leaf.
No, no,
Now
no.
it was a bit dry and perhaps needed to mature a bit so the oils sort of grew in the plant. So I won't sort of say it
Yeah,
doesn't,
that'll be
but
it.
yeah, it probably needed to grow and get established a bit more.
Okay,
But what
well, I
about with
mean,
the fragrant leafed ones?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
no, go
What
on,
about
carry
with
on.
the fragrant leaved ones? So we've really got a delay today, guys. I'm so sorry. What about with the fragrant leafed ones? You can also use them in cooking or make your own potpourri. When I was a weird teenager, I made scented leaf geranium sorbet once.
Do you know what? That's the one thing I haven't tried yet is the sorbet with it. But
No?
we've made sort of jelly jam to have on toast, which in the middle of winter is just like, I don't know, just home comfort, with a cup of tea in the morning. It's really nice. Got juniper, which apparently goes nicely in a gin and tonic. Um, can make teas out of the leaves. I've sort of tried it, but I don't think I let it steep long enough because it just tasted a bit like leaf. But I'm assured that if you let it steep for long enough, you get the things like orange fizz and lemon kiss that I mentioned before. You do get quite a nice, refreshing
Mhm,
tea from it.
mhm.
But my partner Harry makes a good pelargonium cake using the leaves from Radula or Attar of Roses. And not to name drop, but Monty Don did talk about his cake on Gardener's World.
Did
Yeah.
he?
He did, yes.
Oh.
And Harry was like, the only way that that would be trumped was if Mary Berry popped up to say yes, it was all right.
No soggy bottoms.
No, definitely not. But yeah, they can be used, and we've put them on salads and to pretty up salads before, not just at home, when we're entertaining, but to look posh. But yeah, they're sort of versatile, and you can use them for lots of different things.
Wonderful. Obviously, a great deal of talk about the climate and sustainability within horticulture, peat-free growing, preserving rare species, water use, all those kind of things. So how do you and your nursery approach all of that?
Yeah, so it's an area that when I gave up my job, I was actually a lecturer in the business school, and the last course that I developed and looked at delivering was a business sustainability course. And getting sort of content
Mhm,
together for that was a real eye opener as to sort of what was going on in the world and the real impact of needing to be more sustainable. So it's definitely something that I want to sort of look at growing crazy to be a sustainable enterprise. We do a lot, and I'm sort of
mhm.
keen to sort of try and do as much as we can. So we at the moment use a lot of solar energy for lighting and heating.
Cool.
We grow in Cada greenhouses to help with much more, better efficiency with energy and improve the natural light that
Mhm,
we get. So that sort of reduces the need for additional or artificial heat and light. We use 100% biodegradable or recyclable material in our packaging. That was what from the get-go, that was the one thing I was saying, yeah, this is not necessary. We don't need to use plastic to ship these out.
mm.
And
Yeah.
the response we've had from customers has been really positive. It's usually like, yeah, great healthy plants. And then they ran to, glowingly about our packaging, which we actually use newspaper. So we're reusing newspaper on that. We are sort of working towards peat free. At the moment, we're on peat reduced. One of the problems, or sort of one of the things with pelargoniums is literally as you sort of grow a collection, you'll find that each variety is slightly different. You can't just kind of go, oh, they're all geraniums,
Mhm.
so I'm just going to take the same approach.
Yeah.
We have sort of looked at a lot of different peat-free composts, and we continue to experiment with that, and we will get there. But some varieties love it and have no problem with it. Other varieties just go, nah, no, keel over and die, quite literally.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
we're sort of working towards that. But that's what I think is the sustainability bit. If we can sort of view it as I'm going to say like a journey rather than a destination, but it is, we're constantly
That's
looking at
sensible.
ways. Yeah, and it's in terms of
Yeah.
doing the big bit that we're about, which is the plant conservation. taking any sort of knee-jerk sort of responses to, satisfy one sort of need, then create sort of new problems for us. So we've just got to, be sort of sensible with it. But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Good. Sounds good to me.
I think we're just going to finish off with a little bit about Pelargonium care, really. Are there any kind of real misconceptions about how to care for Pelargoniums, aka geraniums, like mistakes people often make, or like what indeed is the kind of magic formula to keep them happy? Not watering them too much, because they're one of the few things that live alone a little bit, right?
That's it. I think the easy thing to do with Pelargoniums is kill them with kindness. One of the things, particularly with the changing climate, they're kind of perfect plants for the changing climate that we're facing in the UK, because they are pretty drought tolerant. They'll put up with quite a lot of abuse in the garden from the weather, with the wind and things. So they're quite versatile in that sense. But I think what then people panic about is, oh, it's too dry, I'll give it extra water. And particularly through sort of hotter summer days, I just say to people, look, just keep on with your normal regime of watering. Don't overwater them. Make sure when the sort of top of the compost gets dry, then water them. But yeah, that's usually the thing that people do, is kill them with kindness. I was gonna say,
like most plants, to be fair. I'm going to tell you a very, very short story here, but I'm staying at my friend's at the moment because I'm dog sitting, and she's got a lot of house plants, which I like to think I inspired her to do. And she said, how often do I have to water them? I mean, that's a question, isn't it? Because there's all kinds of different house plants. Some will need more than others. So I've lifted like the pots out of the out of the outer pots, and they are absolutely like drenched, like they're sitting in water.
Melon.
I am literally going to go around the whole house and remove them all and let them all drain off and dry out a little bit. So I think that's what we do.
Will you
right?
tell her?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But we do kill plants
She'll
of
find out here
kindness.
if not.
That's what we do. We kill plants of kindness. You think, oh, I must need a little bit more water.
Yeah.
I must need this.
absolutely. And one of the
They
things
tell you, don't they, when they need something really?
Exactly. And I was going to say, the other thing is that people tend to do with Pelargoniums in the winter is, again, kill them with kindness. People know that they need to keep them frost free over the winter, but what they don't realize is that ventilation is really important. So people sort of say, well, I can never overwinter these. And it's like, oh, how did you do it? And they say, well, I put them in the greenhouse and then I wrap them in bubble wrap. And you're just like, oh no. Because then obviously they're just going to rot off if they're doing that. So yeah, typically, being killed with kindness with that.
Yeah. Well, please don't do that. But I tell you something, this has really inspired me to get some more Pelargoniums, because I genuinely love them, and I can't think where I was now. There's a place in Norfolk. I went to see an open garden. I think it was an NGS open garden, and they had a glass house at the side of a hall. Oh, I wish I could remember where the name will come to me at some point. But in that glass house, they have a massive collection of Pelargoniums, and it just looked and smelt divine. It was all the pinks and the reds and darker ones, and just absolutely lovely. They're just so very pretty, and they do remind me a little bit of my auntie, because my auntie and uncle were the ones who kind of got me into gardening, and they used to have lots of them as well. So, in the summer, very typical of seeing like the pots and stuff in their garden. But you're right. It's just a lovely plant that can bring back memories. It gives you a bit of nostalgia. They're edible, they're fragrant, they're useful, they're pretty, they make you kind of smile when you see them. So they're absolutely lovely plants, aren't they? I feel like, Stephen, you just must be happy all day, every day, because you work with Pelargoniums.
Pretty much, yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. This has been really interesting. I've really, really enjoyed hearing all about Pelargoniums. Where can our listeners find out more about you, like your website and social media, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we're on our website. Pretty much all the links are from there. So growingcrazy.co.uk, or we're on socials at growingcrazy_UK.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Queen and Fine Floral Design are sponsors of the plant-based podcast for Series 19. We provide nature-led designs for your home, office and events, because flowers really do make people happy. Check us out at queenandfine.com and follow us on Instagram at queenandfine.